One of my other favorite people is Princess Diana, and that is because of how she treated people who had AIDS during the AIDS pandemic. When I was 9, we got a call. My uncle was an amazing man. He was an amazing man, my Uncle Robert. He was a fashion designer, and then he moved to New York and had a floral shop there in New York City. And while he was there, he ended up doing the flowers for the Carnegie Mellon, the Mellon family. And then he also did one of Nixon's daughter's weddings, which is neither here nor there, but he was so good at flowers and arranging flowers. And this comes from my grandmother, who was also a florist. Like she didn't really do that, but it was on her free time. She had a garden all the time and flowers and plants. And so he had grown up in that. And so he took that to New York City, and he ended up moving to England, where he met his partner, and they bought a bathhouse on a big property, and he redid it, and he was an interior designer as well. And so I have the Better Homes and Gardens spread that he did. And so this is my uncle, who was amazingly talented, very creative, escaped small town USA back in the 70s and 60s, when that was very much frowned upon. And I met him once, that I remember, because he came back for Christmas one year and taught me how to make snowflakes. So we made snowflakes, and I was 6. But then when I was 9, we got the call that he was about to pass away, and it was out of the blue for the whole family. We didn't know that things were going on. It turns out he had contracted AIDS, and he was dying of pneumonia. And so my mother found out and lost her brother in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And what I admire Princess Diana for is what Nancy Reagan could never do. And if you watch any information about the Reagans, there were some good things, but one of the worst things that they did was how they approached the AIDS pandemic here in the US. Nancy felt that they were dirty, and she refused to touch them or be around them. But in steps Princess Diana, and she does everything that she possibly can to help these people. And it wasn't until George Bush Sr. took office that we started implementing the necessary steps in order to combat the AIDS pandemic. And I remember whenever I was a kid, I couldn't talk about it because it was something that was taboo. But the thing is that happened. That happened. Things like that happen, and it's not a punishment from God. It is a biological thing that started happening because they ate the wrong food, and it becomes a blood-borne disease. And that is biological. That's not God's wrath. But what I admire Princess Diana for the most is how giving she was and how kind she was and how much she showed. And this is what I feel like. It's like, that's God's love. The judgment and the fear, that has nothing to do with God. God's love is showing kindness and caring to everyone, regardless of what's going on in their life. God's love is not placing people in a category just because you're uncomfortable with something. God's love is service. God's love is giving. So, instead of celebrating my uncle, for all of his fantastic accomplishments. Instead of celebrating them, he was something that we were ashamed of. And I regret never getting to know him, because I would have loved to be around that situation. The way I love creative things and doing art and designing and my house and designing homes. I would have loved it. I would have loved to have that, especially somebody like that. To have a family member who was so creative that I could contact if I needed to. But I know people have lost others. And that was one of the most ruthless ways for people to die. And I'm so grateful that now we have drugs in place that keep it undetectable and that allow you to live longer, and that we've acknowledged it, and it's become part of the story of us, and that we've moved past it medically. We've found answers to that medically. And I'm only sad that we didn't do it sooner. So when things come up against our belief system, you cannot justify hate in any form or fashion with your religion. You can't. You cannot. You can't justify it. There is no justification for hate. That's not your job anyway. And that's something we have to remember. It's not our job. Our job is to find love for people and to care for people and do service for people and be present for people. It's not to judge people and to put them in a category where they're just not worth our time or our efforts. So Princess Diana, I was sad when she passed, but what an icon. Anyway, I hope you guys are good. I will talk to you later.